Hello and welcome to Starting Points, where one thing leads to another. During the series of videos that I've shown so far, a name reoccurs. It sort of leads, it's sort of a thread that ties lots of them together, and I'll be sharing that name again in 3 other videos to come. And this video, though, is a dual purpose. One, I want to talk about that person. And 2, I want to say something that that person had to say about the Gibbon. So, let's get started. First of all, where did I start and become acquainted with this person? And the person's name is Gerald Durrell. And you've heard me mention him. It was in this book, My Family and Other Friends, that I first read about Gerald and Gerald's family and the unusual upbringing that he had when his mother moved, got a villa in Corfu, and Gerald started to explore that island and the natural life and both flora and fauna. And Mother encouraged and supported Gerald in pursuing his interest. And sometimes his older brother Lawrence Durrell sort of gave him some grief, but it was nurturing because he had his mom's support, and she was able to locate somebody on the island who was well versed in the natural sciences and could mentor him. And they met like once a week and shared things and talked about things and introduced things and went on walks together. Lots of walks, exploring walks. So this book was my oldest 2 sons' first introduction to Gerald Durrell as well. And then followed that, the second book, Birds, Beasts, and Relatives, which has 2 covers. I'm come back to this book when we're looking at foods that we get from trees. And this book I'll come back to, the 3rd in that series about his family. And this is called The Garden of the Gods. Now, while he was on Corfu, he had an experience. Donkeys were a means of a pack animal, animal that could carry supplies, and were part of the natural world. Well, he writes a story. It's maybe based on some fact and some imagination, called The Donkey Rustlers. And he also writes later, they're no longer living on Corfu, he writes a book called The Talking Parcel. And for years I knew it as The Talking Parcel. That was the first chapter in the book, The Talking Parcel. But the last chapter in the book was the battle for Cockatrice Castle. And the book was republished with that as a title, but these are the same stories. Just trying to avoid some confusion that one might have if they're trying to follow up and find things. For instance, Beasts in My Belfry, where they've gone back now to England because of the stirrings and rumblings of potential war in Europe. And the mother takes the whole family back there, and Gerald later gets a job in a zoo. And I've mentioned that before. But Gerald also is going on these amazing collecting tours down in the Cameroons. And this one, The Overloaded Ark, I've read, I think, something to you from that, and the Barefoot Beagles. But those are great stories down there. Then there's Zoo in My Luggage, The Drunken Forest, The Whispering Land, and then there's Encounters with Animals, talks about various aspects or characteristics of animal inventors, animal architects, or chapter headings, for example, then certain animals in particular, adopting an anteater, and the human animal. And that's one of the stories I always read to my class, called McToodle, where Gerald goes down into a pit, descends into a pit to collect gabbing vipers. The New Noah, we starting his own zoo, stationary zoo, Philae Place. This book I've shown you when we were looking at elephants. This is a novel. Here's a collection of stories with the title Marrying Off Mother. It involves some quite funny stories, and I happened to mention it to one of my sons, and he remembered the story that I mentioned very, very well. And so it's been like a network of stories that connects our whole family up, in a sense. Here are three others, the I, and I. And that's when he goes down to Madagascar. And when we're looking at lemurs, I'm going to read you something from this book. Three singles to adventure has a section in there about the sloth. And when I look at the sloth in trees, I'll read you from this book. Today, I'm going to read you from this book. It's called Menagerie Manor. And in it, there's an encounter with the gibbon. So here's the gibbon part. Thanks for your patience waiting for the gibbon part. Louis was a large black gibbon with white hands, and she, Louis, had been sent to us by a friend in Singapore. She'd been the star attraction of a small RAF zoo. Where? RAF Zoo? Royal Air Force Zoo? To judge by her dislike of humans, and men in particular, she'd received some pretty rough handling. We put her in a spacious cage in the mammal house and hoped that, by kind treatment, she would eventually gain her confidence. For a month, all went well. Louis ate prodigiously, actually allowing us to stroke her hand through the wire, and would wake us every morning with her joyous war cries, a series of ringing whoops, rising to a rapid crescendo and then trailing off into what sounded like manacled giggle. One morning, Jeremy came to me and said that Louis was not well. So, I'm sharing this with you because here's a man whose life was devoted to animals and having a dream of having a zoo and helping save endangered animals. He had so many skills. He learned from working in zoos. He learned some of the skills he needed. He had to know how to build cages, how to transport, what to feed the animals to keep them, what their diet was, and he had to know how to organize trips for collecting, how to just all these various skills. And he also had to be a doctor to animals. And this chapter is called The Nightingale Touch. And at first I thought it was going to be about, singing or something, birds in England. But no, it's about Florence Nightingale, who was a famous nurse, and he's having animals that he had to care for and know what to do, and to the amounts of skills that he had. And then somewhere among this busy, involved life with animals, he found time to write all these books. Pretty amazing person. And in our case, brought some joy, some knowledge, and created some curiosity. So, thanks for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.